Welcome to the Unshakeable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main share meeting, and today it's with much pleasure and lots of gratitude that we welcome Tom J, who's come to share on the topic of the blood and the ink for up to 40 minutes, after which we'll open up to the Q&A portion of the meeting. So with that, Tom, it's over to you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation, Isaac. Welcome, everybody. Tom, an addict, alcoholic, you name it. I'm sure I qualify. I want to unpack for you what the title of this meeting is. And it says the blood and the ink. I don't know if you've heard that before, but we're going to unpack it in a way that I hope you see the importance of it in a way that it has influenced and changed my life. Sometimes I have to start off by sharing with you my sobriety date is October 16th, 1988. I'm 37 years sober. So I often wonder, what does somebody with 37 years sober have to share about? That's a lot of time. It's certainly a hell of a lot more than I used. So should we revisit the past? Should I spend this time sharing with you some of the outrageous, insane drugalogs? I think you'll get enough of that if you're like me, a regular meeting goer. I think that you'll go to enough of those, and you'll probably hear them, probably 100 of them this month. What I'd like to do is switch it up and share with you my sobriety. And my sobriety is more about the effect, the actual effect that this material has on who we are. The reason I want to share that with you is because why the hell are we investing all these thousands of hours sitting in this seat day after day, week after week? Why? Before the meeting started, I had a picture up there of the little room where Bill Wilson wrote these 12 steps. And one of the things I like about Cocaine Anonymous is that it's all inclusive. And I've had a meeting in my backyard for over 28 years that's all inclusive. Anybody in any 12-step program. There's a couple of people in this meeting that know that. And the most amazing thing happens if you're an alcoholic and you hear a cocaine addict share, you go, oh my God. Yeah, I get it. It's a disease of addiction. And then we have someone from Al-Anon who'll pipe up and we'll go, oh my God, I haven't heard their side of the story yet. Or we have somebody from ACA. And we go, I haven't heard their side of the story yet. And then this theme starts developing. You're going, wait a minute. There's a lot of wellness going on here. Like we said earlier while we were waiting to start the meeting, there's a lot of miracles. I'm looking right now at 61 of them. That's amazing. It's a treasure trove of endless miracles, right? And that word gets thrown around a lot, but we're going to unpack that. As I said, I'm going to talk a lot about what sobriety has opened my eyes to. I'll sprinkle it with a little of dope fiend shit just so you know that I qualify. And we'll laugh. That's the problem, right? I don't want to turn this into an entertainment show. I really want to turn it into an evening of inspiration. Because, ultimately we who stay around here for a long time invest a lot of energy in these circles. A lot of time doing 12-step calls. And then we have just as much difficult time as anybody who's new, because all of a sudden you're introduced to somebody that you had no idea even existed. Actually, I knew who I was as a dope fiend. I knew who I was. The evidence was overwhelming. I remember, I share this all the time, my fourth DUI in the States, that's get caught while you're drugging and driving. was 23 hours after my third in a stolen car. So that should give you a hint a little about where I come from. And there's so many of those stories that all you would be doing is laughing, going, yeah, I get that. I get that. But my intention today, at least, is to share with you what has happened to me as a result of coming here day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. You know, there's a new story. As a matter of fact, that story changes just about now almost every year. I just keep being introduced to somebody I had no idea existed. And we'll talk about that in a second because I'm certain it's true here. As a matter of fact, just for fun, we'll make this interactive, right? Could you guys raise your hand who identifies with this statement that when you got sober and you're now clean and sober, did you get introduced to somebody that you didn't know even existed? Did you know that this version of you existed? I'll ask Young. Young, did you know this version of you existed? No fucking way. How about Jill? How about Ross? Ross, did you know this version of you existed? No way. Jill, did you know this version of you? No way. How about George? How about Pedro? Pedro, did you know this version of you existed? No way. So I'm going to spend some time talking about that, not just because it's something to look forward to, but because the material was designed to succeed. So don't hold it back. It's designed to succeed. It's designed to change our life, right? And I have to tell you, in all honesty, it was a lot easier when I lived on my bicycle at the age of 30 with drug saws on my face and shit in my pants, unable to read or write. That life is actually easier than this one right now. Back then, I didn't have to lick any stamps, right? And I didn't own anything. I mean, that was an easy life. You know, I always used to pick up shit on the street and put it in my pockets. And for years, I had one key in my pocket. I found it somewhere, and it didn't even go to anything. And today, 37 years later, I'm still picking shit up off the street. I come home and I have to dump my pockets out, and I got all this junk. Where did that come from? So some things never change, right? So I want to tie everything I've said now, I want to tie it all to one moment in history that has changed the course of tens of millions of people. And it continues to do that. And by the way, some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. It was a flash of light at the end of the bed for Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson experienced a flash of light. And as a result of that, we're all sitting around this tribal circle making an effort to improve the quality of our human condition, whether we know it or not. I didn't come here knowingly think that I wanted, a good life. I had no idea. I had no idea what was about to happen to me. I came here kicking and screaming because I had a court card. I came here because there was donuts, food, and women, basically, And I was not approachable when I got here. But boy, it was amazing to see who was sitting around the room. And that was why I hung around. It didn't help that I couldn't read or write, so I didn't know anything about what you were talking about. I was too busy talking to myself. Anybody identify with that? You know what I'm talking about when you talk to yourself, like when you're on a 3 or 4 day run, and that organ between your ears is spinning 190 million miles a second? So I was not prepared for what happened to me. And that's why I tell you guys, put your seatbelt on, because you're about to get introduced to somebody you didn't even know existed. And I tell you, when that happens, you're going to have to learn to live a different way. Because all of a sudden, what are you going to do with all these friends? All of a sudden, we got all these friends. Oh, I mean, like I got 66 friends right now. Whereas before, nobody could trust me for anything, you know. And I don't blame them, because not only did I steal your trust, but I also stole things that weren't mine. Sometimes I was hungry and how to do it. And other times I just did it because I was an asshole. I had no idea that in step 7 and step 10, they would talk about character development. I thought I was stuck with who I was for my whole life. And that is not a pretty story. And I had a lot of other issues, like we all do, to learn to deal with. And if it wasn't for the power of this program, I would have got stuck in those stories. And what are those stories? We all have them, right? Sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's insecurity. I had all of that in spades times 10, and I'll tell you why. I was born to a prostitute in New York City, 3 months premature. She didn't even know she was pregnant. And when I popped out across the street from Lenox Hill Hospital, and because it was a hospital, there were interns there. I got rushed to the hospital. I became a ward of the state because I was a drug baby. And from there, I moved into foster homes, and 14 of them to be exact. And back in the 60s, you didn't need any qualifications for social services to adopt a kid. Everyone knew the more kids you had, the bigger check you got. And so I got adopted by all the dope fiends because I didn't look good on paper. So tying your arm off and sticking a needle in your rig was kind of the daily life experience at the age of 8. And things never got any better since then. Watching people get literally beat to death. It didn't help that I was brutally dyslexic, and maybe that's because of being a drug baby, but I never did learn to read or write until I got here. Now, I could have easily been stuck in the victimization of that story if I had never come to these rooms. Because, you know, where's my parents? Where's my opportunity? Where's my fair share of the pie, for crying out loud, you know, that kind of bullshit. And I was riddled with it. I thought when I took something that wasn't mine, I deserved it. So I had, like we all do, and like Bill Wilson knew, that the drugs and the alcohol are just a symptom. What's the real problem here? I thought it was all those events I just rattled off to you. And they're quite legitimate, right? But no, he says it's the symptom. That eventually you have to get down to the causes and conditions. What are the causes and conditions? For me, I don't know what it is for you, but having sponsored a lot of people and been doing this deal for 37 years every day, I don't miss a day. My problem was arrested development in a really severe way. I was emotionally retarded. If you offended me, I would either strike you or burn your house down. Or when no one's around, I'd steal something just so I can make you hurt the same way you're hurting me. That's how emotionally retarded I was. I was unable to work because I was brutally uneducated. So I walked around this planet extremely resentful, extremely angry, brutally depressed because I really felt like they dropped me off on the wrong planet and I didn't understand anything. And then there was this other side of me that really struggled. I didn't understand why I got dealt this deck of cards. Why? So this leads up to my substance abuse. The only way I could tolerate my human existence was to get high. And I was never been a partier. Forget about that. I've been sniffing glue since 7, and that just moved on to any other thing that was under the kitchen sink. And that moved on to any other thing from a pipe to a rig to a bottle. And that went on for a long time. Why? Was I having fun? Absolutely not. Living out of a duffel bag on other sick women's couches, you know. I knew nothing about the world. I knew nothing about money, which, you know, kicks all of our asses. I knew nothing about literature or conversation, even my feelings. I remember somebody gave me a little piece of paper with 100 little round faces on it, and they had different expressions. Some were really sad, some were really happy, and they said, "Tom, how do you feel?" I go, what does that mean? And they say, "Well, poke to one of the images." And that's the first time in my life I ever identified a feeling. I mean, that's pretty damn retarded. That's why I say my causes and conditions was arrested development. And to me, the phenomena of these 12 steps, the miracle of it, like we talked earlier, the miracle is that it clears away the wreckage of the past, and then it relieves us of the bondage of self. If I hadn't been relieved of all of those things I just told you, I'd be one angry 67-year-old guy. Probably still on that bicycle, by the way. But a lot has happened since then. And what is that? What did happen? And that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about whatever that light was that Bill Wilson experienced at the end of the bed. By the way, that's been recorded in every culture, in literature throughout the world, whether it was Gandhi on the train or the Buddha under the Bodhi tree or Jesus in the desert, whether it's in the Upanishads, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Quran, the Kabbalah. These stories of people having these profound experiences, then they come back into culture and they try to share it with us. What's remarkable about our program is that nobody's in charge. There's no hierarchy. You don't have to give $1 if you don't want to or two. And where we absolutely care about every single human being that sits next to us. I don't know where else that happens. Before I dive into this white light thing at the end of the bed, I want to tell you guys that I am who I am because you took time out of your life so I could have one. Before I got to these rooms, whether it was the courts, the judge, the police, the neighbor, the girlfriend, they all poked their finger in my chest and said, "Don't waste any time with this guy. He's a loser, and he's never going to amount to anything." And I have a lot of evidence to prove that that's true. Until I came to our rooms, for the first time in my life, I experienced unconditional generosity. And that was my first experience. I didn't know what kindness was. And someone gave me 2 shoes that matched. Someone gave me an old truck to live in. Someone gave me an Airstream to live in. My sponsor took 2 years out of his life to teach me how to read and write at the age of 32. And here's where the story really begins, right? Because if you practice this enough, you're going to have a whole new set of problems to deal with. One of them, for instance, is forgiveness to yourself and to others. Making amends, that's so powerful, it's insane. How about caring? I didn't know how to care. I really didn't. How about the big word, love? All of a sudden, now I have real things to worry about. And by the way, now I have to lick stamps because, there's things called taxes and petrol. Now life is really getting complicated. Whatever happened to Bill Wilson at the end of that bed is why we're all here. He had a psychic change, and he was brave enough to include that in the big book multiple times. What is a psychic change? I like to call it, jokingly, a psychic chiropractic adjustment. and everything about the reality changes. Guess what, you guys? That's why I got high. It's exactly why I got high, man. I wanted to be rocketed into another dimension because I was so miserable in my own skin. I needed to get high. I didn't want to get high. I needed to get high. Whether I was freebasing or a long line or it didn't matter. I needed to get high. And it was never, what does it last? A couple of minutes and then I'm chasing it. And those chases would land into weeks and weeks and your stuff. And oh my God, then I would do criminal things. It's endless. But it says that this program is a spiritual program. And that's what we signed up for. I didn't know that. I thought it was cookies. I thought it was that trailer you gave me to live in. I thought it was more people to score off of. I was literally asleep. And I call that arrested development. And until I addressed that, I had no chance of really evolving as a human being. And to me, that's the brilliance of our program. I had no idea this version of Tom Jackson ever existed. I had no idea. And we say it all the time, I could have missed it. Because I was so deeply invested in my drug story. I was so deeply invested in that it became my drug even. I was afraid to move on. I was really afraid that you might find out who I am. So it was hard for me to participate in the real world unless a psychic change happened. We see it happen here all the time, man. It's either the educational variety, or the burning bush. Shit, man, I wouldn't know a burning bush if it was in front of me. I'd probably piss on it, Mine was the educational variety. And that was people like you taking time out of your life so I could have one. My sponsor got me a big book and a recording of a big book, and he made me match every word in the recording to the words in the book, and that's how I learned to read. I still have ridiculous dyslexic issues with phonics and stuff like that, but I'm no longer brutally self-conscious where it bothers me anymore. When I first came into the rooms, I couldn't even get up and get a cup of coffee because I knew you were all looking at me. You live like that every day. You need to get high. That kind of self-consciousness is brutal. When you think the world is about you, it's brutal. Well, back to this white light thing. Back to this psychic chiropractic adjustment. It's my belief. You ready for this? This is really kind of out there in left field, so please just embellish me for a minute. I know this is off the wall. I don't think any of us got here because of our past. Well, just sit on that for a minute. That's a crazy thing to say, right? Because the judge sends us here, the ex-wife leaves, we lose this, we lose everything. And we like to blame the drugs, right? And that's why we think we got here. Well, 37 years later, it's overwhelmingly evident to me that we're being pulled into our future. I didn't know my future was begging me to get here. I did not know that. I thought I got here because of all the things I did in my past. No. I'm being pulled into my future. And once I know that, I can let go of not just the drug story, not just the trauma, not just the ignorance, the arrogance, and the prejudice, the small-mindedness, the arrested development. Once I realize that I'm being pulled into my future, I can start to participate in it. And how do you do that? Well, we all know that. We hear it all the time. First, I had to let people help me. I had to let that guard down. I had to accept that this journey was going to introduce me to things I knew nothing about, and that was going to be a challenge. I'm sometimes embarrassed to tell you guys that I even turned my recovery into an addiction because I was really afraid to be challenged to grow up. And what does grow up mean? Wow, that's such a big conversation. Our book, one of my most famous expressions that Bill Wilson talks about who we are as a result of doing this work. He says you'll tap into unsuspected inner resources you didn't even know existed. You know how before we got here, we would do anything to score, right? We would trade in anything, sometimes even our own children. I've known people like that. I've done so many, couple of hundred fifth steps. I can tell you other people have done that too. There's nothing beneath us when we're using and drinking. But with that said, believe it or not, sometimes we want to hold on to our drug-a-log. And sometimes we want to hold on to the person we dragged into the room. And it's really hard to take that backpack off and be relieved of the bondage of self. I defended this asshole that was trying to kill me my whole life. It was me. I had no idea. Bill Wilson talks about it all the time, that we create our own problems. And I did not know that, man. I was too busy being a victim to realize that I was manufacturing. I think the quote is that we manufacture our own misery. So to take this to the next step, and this is where I hope that you'll, cut me some slack. I honestly believe that I'm looking everyone in this room, and I do it in every room I walk into. I believe that we're being pulled into become better fathers, better parents, better people, better human beings. As a matter of fact, they are the best human beings I ever met on the planet. And I could say that with a lot of certainty. When I got here, I was a street kid. I made my living on the streets in New York. And thank God for a fifth step because I got a lot of that stuff out of the way. It's embarrassing and humiliating, and it's hard to believe that we have to do that in the world's richest country. But I got introduced to somebody who was privileged because of these rooms to have the wildest education imaginable. I got to learn about the human soul. I got to learn about heartache and sickness and psychiatric issues. My sponsor gave me a one-way ticket to India. I was 8 years sober, and I rode an old Royal Enfield from Bombay. Well, back then it was Bombay, from Bombay to New Delhi. It was a wonderful program experience, and one of my sponsees got married on top of Machu Picchu, and I was asked to be the best man at the wedding. I have about 700 more stories like that are all a result of just me sitting in the room. So here's my experience. I've had so many love affairs with every one of you, inviting me into your house, cooking food for me, getting me jobs, taking time out of your day to teach me to read and write, teaching me how to be a decent human being. I've had so many years of that I don't even remember the guy I brought into the room. I did know I was going to trade that story in for this guy. The first book I ever owned was a big book. And now behind me in the other room, from a bicycle to having more than one room, there's a couple of thousand books in there, and I've been privileged to read them all, give them away, and then get another 1,000, and give them away and get another 1,000. I had no idea that I would learn how to read books one day. I had no idea that I'd get up at 2 a.m. and drive for 3 hours to your house because you can't get off the kitchen floor for whatever reason. And I've seen those people in 12-step calls that you taught me how to love change their life so radically that I realized I was looking at me. because I don't know who the hell I am. As a matter of fact, I finally lived long enough to become nobody. How's that? It's not important anymore. Well, what happened to you guys? Did I lose the meeting? Oh, somehow I just got a blackout. Am I back? Can you guys? Yeah, I'm back.
We've
Great.
got you.
I don't know how that happened. I got pulled into a future. The only thing I knew about was when I was like on a 4-day run, extremely high, hallucinogenics, topped that with, some other nice chemicals. Then I met this guy, but I had no idea who I was clean and sober. And I don't think anything would have ever happened to me if I hadn't come into our rooms. I was so broken that I don't think there ever would have been a chance. And a lot has happened to me on the outside, you guys. But I want to wind back to this idea of the light at the end of the bed that Bill Wilson had. Whatever that experience was is why we've signed up for a spiritual program. We don't often talk about the psychic change as a topic in the meeting. We don't often talk about, by the way, don't take my word for it. It says this in the book. It says, we're miracles of mental health. Did you ever hear that as a topic in a meeting? No, because for me, I was too busy talking about how sick I was. I didn't know nothing about self-care. I knew a lot about self-damage. The sheet's like a rap sheet. It's really long, but I knew nothing about self-care. Well, you could tell I'm no longer illiterate. I'm still learning to write. I can read reasonably well. The life experiences are still happening. But the real growth, the real change is what happened on the inside. I can't explain it to you, but I'm no longer envious or jealous of you. Nobody has anything I want. You brought me home. I'm finally comfortable in my own skin. I don't know how that happened. I know that's why I got high. And so, as a result of that, I've spent the last 20 years of my sobriety, of these 37 years, studying that around the world. From Buddhist monasteries at the base camp of Everest to being involved with every imaginable New Age pop culture bullshit story about, wellness. And there isn't anything that comes close to what we do in these rooms. And why is that? Here's the title of the meeting: The Blood and the Ink. I finally am educated. It took a long time. Education came real late to me in life. I can tell you how many times every word is said. I didn't know I had a photographic memory. That came out as a result of being sober. I didn't know I was a hard worker. That came out as a result of being sober. I didn't know, like the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, I didn't even know I had a brain. like who's the other guy in that? Is the lion? He didn't know he had courage, but he did. Right? The Tin Man didn't know he had a heart. He was convinced. But he went on a journey with some chick to go to the Emerald something, and he found out, oh yeah, man, yeah, I have a heart. Well, that's every one of our stories. Every one of our stories. But then when you get there, then we have to decide what we're going to do. And for me, it's all about staying in these rooms and freely giving what was so freely given to me. Get sober and help somebody else. That's the blood and the ink. I could sit here and bore you to death with every single sentence, where it came from, what year it came, who wrote it, how it got written, the dates, but it's nothing compared to sitting in somebody's kitchen at 4 o'clock in the morning when the world is falling apart, and they're just as sick as we were, nothing will give you a better education than going, wait a minute, let me take time out of my life so maybe somebody else could have a chance at one of their own. That's how this knuckle-dragging Neanderthal matured out of those dark ages, was being in your company. Now, at the same time, I can't think of a better place on the planet to come and die. And if you haven't died yet, I'm speaking metaphorically, right? AA is a wonderful place to come, NACADA, a wonderful place to come and have an ego death. I didn't realize, I said it earlier, that I was defending this asshole who was trying to kill me. It was me. I didn't realize that I had to dismantle that. And that's where 4, 5, and 6 came in. It helped me dismantle those things. 7 is all about character development. And 10, something happened. I heard a loud pop. And I ran to my sponsor. I said, oh man, I think I just had a spiritual experience. He leaned back in his chair and he said, no kid, I think it's just your head just popped out of your ass. And he was right. I didn't realize, you guys, how ignorant I really was. It's actually embarrassing. I knew nothing about being a human being. I didn't even know how to take care of this body. I inhaled, snorted, and shot so much shit that I should be arrested for, torture. My sponsor made me put myself on the top of the 8th and 9th step. He made me make amends to myself. And you don't understand that in the beginning because we're so invested in the ego that we think we know everything. I had no idea that that guy needed to be dismantled and needed to die. And that's the brilliance of this navigational chart called the 12 steps. And so the blood is, I care about you. And thanks for helping me know what that means. Thanks for allowing me to leave this planet a human being and not just an animal who's looking for his fair share of the pie. I have a dear friend in this meeting right now. She talks all the time that the 11th step is an extra credit. It's just as important as the first step. And what do we learn in meditation? Here this guy's trying to teach Western culture about meditation long before the hippies, long before the New Age pop culture. What's he doing? What's going on here? So I've slowed down those gears between my ears because of that beautiful step, step 11. And it does for me the same things that drugs did for me. I'm going to end it with this, you guys. The blood in the ink. The blood is that you cared for me so much that I got to evolve in my little tiny lifetime. Does everybody here know the film Groundhog's Day? Remember that with Bill Murray, Groundhog's Day? Funny ass movie. It was written by a guy in the program. CA, he was a NACA guy. And he was also a Buddhist. And it's based on something called the Wheel of Dharma. And that means if you don't figure out your shit this lifetime, you got to keep coming back and repeating it. And that's the whole theme of that movie, Groundhog Day. So I owe you the biggest debt of gratitude that I don't have to come back and live this shit the way I came in. I think I'm going to get to experience something different. I do every day now. I'm not the same guy today that I was a week ago. How does that happen? It says take out the trash. And the trash was my addiction. Does it mean I don't have toothaches and headaches and heartaches? You guys, but 3 months ago, I had an expiration date. I just came through a violent, brutal cancer story where they cut out a part of my tongue. They ripped open my neck, a radical neck surgery. I got rid of everything I owned pretty much. And I was ready to die because you taught me how to be peaceful in my own skin. I was ready for that story too. So just don't think that I'm trying to pump sunshine up your ass. I'm talking about transformation. And that's the beauty of our program. And it only happens through the blood. I could tell you to do the steps 100 times. But when I take time out of my life to go sit with you, that's when the magic happens. And that's why I took this invitation. That's why I take them all. It's not like I'm trying to tell you how to do the program. If I ever do that, please jump off, because I don't want to be one of those pontificators that's telling you what to do, because that's not who we are as a program. Nobody's in charge here. Do this any way you want. Don't shove it down anybody's throat, please. You're better off taking them for a cup of coffee and befriending them, because that's what we all really need. We just want to be seen and heard. And thank you for my life.
Young, would you like to come in?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Young, recovered addict. Tom, thank you so much. Always so good to see you and hear you. The question I was going to ask was, what's the biggest miracle that you've experienced during your 37 years? But I think you might have answered that at the end, perhaps. So maybe I'll change, if that's your answer, I might change that to, how did you feeling you were preparing for the end? And what were you doing around that time? Thank you so much, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Young. Please don't be judgmental about what I'm going to say. The program's designed to succeed, and you'll know when it does. If you're so clean for more than 2 days, it has already. You gave me the gift of being at peace with myself. And all of us in these rooms have lived really rough, tough lives on an emotional level. And when you get to trade that in for another whole life, you're so overwhelmed with gratitude that you can take me right now. I've been so overpaid, it's not funny. I've been so overpaid, it's not funny. So to answer your question, Young, is that I'm comfortable in my own skin. I don't need a glass pipe in my lips or a rolled up bill and with a line on the table. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life paying that back. I'm one of those crazy people that works with hundreds and hundreds of people. I'm embarrassed to tell you guys this, but I went from a bicycle to owning a home. And on that home, I have all these crazy things, including over 7,000 drug addicts in my backyard over the last 29 years. I don't know how to pay this back. Please help me if you know. Except to show up every day and do what they say, get clean and help someone else.
Beautiful. Thank you both. Jessica, you're up next.
You're on mute. There you go.
There we go. Firstly, what an amazing share. That's probably the best share I've ever heard. Thank you so much. You talked a lot about the gifts of recovery, and I just wondered, were you able to make a career, and how did you juggle recovery with your career?
Wow, thanks for asking that, because I don't really accept these rooms. I don't talk about my outside life much. And you know why, you guys? I think the planet's beautiful. I just think mankind's crazy. I think he's insane, and I don't want to participate. I don't want to become somebody. I don't have a single credential on the wall that says I'm anybody. So I've been very careful in how I'm going to give my energy out to that world. And so as a result, I do as minimal as possible. I've produced biodiesel, alternative fuel, for 25 years. I'm an interventionist. I do interventions on kind of high-profile people. I'm a crisis interventionist. From a guy who couldn't read, who got there on a bicycle, that's pretty radical, right? But it's not my intention to impress you with that change. All the change is on the inside. And my third career is remember I told you I found a key, went in my pocket? I also found an old fire truck. And 35 years ago, I was like the first guy to ever build, a food truck. And I turned that fire truck into a concession business that I ran for 30 years with all program people. And I gave 90% of that money back to the people who worked for me. I don't have any money. I think it's fair to say I'm cash poor, but I am so rich on the inside that I've learned to deal with these emotional struggles that the angry people out there throw at you all the time, the greed. I don't understand that stuff, even though I participated in it. So I don't know if I'm asking your question. Those are the three things I did for a living. I make alternative fuel. I'm a crisis interventionist for sort of high profile people, mostly Wall Street. And I can tell you, some people are so poor, all they have is money. You guys are the rich people to me. You make the effort to change the quality of your life on a conscious level. Bill talks about consciousness all the time. Talks about a psychic change all the time. This is a spiritual program. What are we doing here? Where are you going? What are you waiting for? I don't know if that answered it or not, but did that work, Jessica? Okay, cool.
Thank you, Jessica. Ross, please come in.
Thanks for taking the meeting, Isaac. Thank you for that share, Tom. My question is, you spoke a lot about Bill's white light moment. Just wondering if you could share a bit about your first experience with that. You said it was more of an educational thing for you, but did you have a bright light moment or anything that kind of made you kick on and get thirsty for this stuff?
Believe it or not, I have. They're difficult to talk about because they're so personal to each and every one of us. I've had them in traditional Hindu ways where we call it raising the Kundalini. I've had it in anxiety-ridden ways where I was so overwhelmed with, we call it a download. I was so overwhelmed with information that it felt like I was having a nervous breakdown. That's what happened to Bill between the Big Book and the 12 by 12. It took him 13 years to write the 12 by 12 because he had gotten all these insights. And that's pretty traditional with all of the avatars or anybody in history that has a leap of consciousness. You have to figure out what just happened to you. You know, it's actually a lot easier to stay in stupid. So the first time I had it, I thought I was going to have to be hospitalized. The second time I had it, I think you guys will appreciate this. I was in a Buddhist monastery, and I'm not a Buddhist, at the base camp of Everest, and I met an 80-year-old Tibetan Rinpoche who knew more about the phenomena of our program than anybody I'd ever met. He knew the global, he saw this program from 30,000 feet, and he blew my mind. And you know what he told me? He said, go home. It's easy to be spiritual on the mountaintop. Now go do it on a 12-step call when you open the door and the guy blows his head off. The week that I spent there, I think for the first time in my life, I was allowed to be innocent, and I felt like a baby. And I became childlike. And I was really even afraid to come back west because I didn't know how to behave. And we live in a pretty rough culture. Just watch the evening news. It's another reason I love you guys, because I can talk about the language of the heart. And you can't do that out there. So I've had many spiritual experiences, Ross. Sometimes it's as simple as taking a shit. Sometimes it's as simple as eating a really good meal. Sometimes it's walking on the beach with somebody and I get an epiphany like, oh my God, I walked in their shoes and I'm not that person anymore. How did that happen, Tom Jackson? And I'm overwhelmed and I'll say something to you guys. I'll start to cry. And I didn't cry till I was 2 years sober. I got hit by a drunk on a motorcycle, an old Motor Guzzi. And I ended up in the hospital. And because I don't have any family, nobody came to visit. And on the seventh day, my whole morning meeting showed up. And first time in my life, I cried like a baby. I was so embarrassed, I was trying to hide my face in the pillow. One woman, Sandy, she was like massaging my head. Someone was massaging my feet. And I believe I became a human being that day. That was a spiritual experience. So they're different for all of us. Sometimes it's as simple as telling the truth. I never knew how to tell the truth. That's a spiritual experience when you cop to telling someone, I just lied to you. And you're having a nice conversation. Man, I just lied to you. That's a spiritual experience. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you, Ross. We have one more question in the chat before we wind things down to close. So, Tom, you talked about being pulled into the future. How did you come to this conclusion is the question for you.
Well, I really believe that. I believe it because of the radical transformations. We have a guy in this room right now, Pedro, right? A real hardcore street guy. And I've watched him for the last 2 years become this remarkable human being. There's a time I'm sure he wouldn't have thought twice about taking your life. And now he's like the sweetest gentleman I've ever met. He got pulled into his future. And there's no question I got pulled into this human being I didn't even know existed. And that's why I love you guys. I don't stay around here to hear your war stories. I stay around here to watch where you're going, because that to me is amazing. It's amazing to watch a woman who made a living, in the sex industry in an alleyway end up owning multiple businesses and employing so clean people, and is the kindest woman I know and helps more people than anyone I ever met. I would say that's being pulled into your future. So I don't know if that helped at all, but just look around you. Everyone around you is being pulled into their future. And I'll just try to articulate this. When you know that, you can get on with the business of co-creating it. Don't stall on your fourth step. Don't hesitate to help someone when they ask you. Don't think twice about doing this work so you can get it out of the way, so you can get on with the business of experiencing it. You get on with the business of being introduced to versions of you didn't even know existed. Did that help? Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you so much, Tom. Michael, got time for one more quick question if you want to quickly come in.
Thanks very much, Isaac, and it's good to see you. Tom, I love that phrase, being pulled into the future, and I feel like I was kind of supposed to be on this meeting because it's the first time I've been on, and I've come away from recovery a lot, but I've just got a sponsor, and my old sponsor left the fellowship, and I wasn't in a hurry to get a new one. So anyway, I've been reading a lot and listening to a lot of stuff to do with karma and dharma and all that kind of thing, which I was averse to it before because it seemed to blame people. And I don't want to ask you a religious question, but I found a really helpful framing of things as to being like, on some level, spiritual level, each of us chose to come here, and thinking like that has really helped me sort of get out of self-pity. And I kind of wonder, because the challenges that arise and whatever they are, now I'm quite a long way away from using and all that kind of thing, I tried to see them that way, and I sort of wanted to ask your opinion on that briefly. Thanks for letting me come in, Isaac.
Wow, that's been the best part of the whole evening for me, and I hope I have time, Isaac, to unpack that. You guys heard me talk for 40 minutes, and I didn't talk a lot about God. A lot of people do in AA and NACA. In the program, they talk a lot about God. But the second step says that we're insane. And I recognized early on that I could have got drunk on God and never dealt with the crazy psychological damage of how badly broken I was. So, yeah, I've been privileged to read and study and all the theologies. But my God is the Milky Way. I have it right, a picture of it right behind this computer. It's the Milky Way, and then right underneath it is the exact identical photograph. It's also the Milky Way. The top one says the Milky Way. The bottom says the Milky Way without Earth. And everything, like Shakespeare said, it's even in the big book, is just fucking storytelling. And part of the gift that you gave me spiritually is that I'm no longer connected to all those stupid, crazy stories. I realized that life is a gift and I could live it any way I want. And I talk to God all day long, man, all day long. Whether it's a snail on a leaf of a tree that I could stand there for 20 minutes or whether I'm taking somebody to detox. My spiritual nature is the best thing that I have going for me. And it's a gift that you freely gave me. And I could flip a switch and quote you anything out of King James and make it sound like I'm a good Christian. Or I could sit here and tell you about the Tibetan Book of the Dead and you would think I was a Buddhist. But AA Step 3 said, go find something of your own understanding. And that's the biggest gift I ever got. It gave me independent thinking. And because of that, I think I found a W. And I'll end it with this. When we all get here, we have a huge HOLE in our chest. A hole. And it's different for everyone what that hole is. And I say, stay here long enough to put a W in front of that HOLE. And you know what you get? WHOLE. It's indescribable. But thank you for allowing me to experience this planet without being tied to stories. This is the only story I'm concerned about is you guys. It's the only story. And I'm qualified to participate in a lot of them, but this is the only one I want. And thank you for my life.